Welcome back. A federal source confirming to Fox that the FBI's Joint Terrorism Task Force and ICE arrested 8 Tajikistan nationals with ties to ISIS in New York City, Los Angeles, and Philadelphia in recent days. They all crossed into America through the southern border illegally, and they received full vetting at the time, but nothing was initially flagged, so they were released into America. The investigation also reportedly featured a wiretap, which found that one of the Tajikistan nationals was talking about bombs. The New York Post editorial board is out with a new piece this morning titled, "With terror threats sky high and the border wide open, brace for another 9/11. FBI Director Christopher Wray has been warning us about a potential terrorist threat now for some time. Here he is just last week in D.C.
We've seen the threat from foreign terrorists rise to a whole nother level. On top of that, increasingly concerning is the potential for a coordinated attack here in the homeland, not unlike the ISIS-K attack we saw at the Russia Concert Hall back in March.
Joining me now is Kansas Senator Roger Marshall, a member of the Senate Budget, Homeland Security, Agriculture, and Health Committee. Senator, it's great to see you once again. Thanks very much for being here. What are you expecting with regard to a potential terrorist attack in this country? What can you tell us, being on the Homeland Security Committee?
Well, Maria, I think like Director Wray said, all the lights are blinking red, that we're very concerned. You've been following this, reporting on it for several years now, but hundreds of known terrorists have walked across the border. We talk about the known gotaways. There's been 2 million known gotaways under Joe Biden get in here. We have no idea how many terrorists they are. All I can tell you is all the lights are blinking red. We're concerned, and this is not going to stop until we get a new sheriff in town and someone who's serious about controlling the border, and then there has to be a massive deportation.
So Axios is reporting that thousands of unaccompanied migrant children are crossing the San Diego border each year, and the numbers are increasing as migration patterns push westward. And of course, Texas has done so much to close its border with the new wire at the border, and as a result, the migrants are now going more so to Arizona, more so to San Diego. It's a head scratcher to me that the administration comes out with an executive order and it doesn't include unaccompanied children. I mean, that's where the drug cartels have been exploiting our border the most. Here is Greg Abbott, the governor of Texas, with me on Sunday about that very issue. Watch.
The unaccompanied children is just one of very many exceptions to the new rule that Biden has established. The exceptions exceed the rule, and that allows, again, even more people to cross illegally into our country that the Biden administration is now going to process and to allow to stay into the United States. And allowing them to stay here, all that does is provide a tool to the cartels who are responsible for everybody who crosses illegally to exploit those children. This is extraordinarily harmful to these children, and they oftentimes are used as tools. They will cross the border with some adult, and then they will be sent back across the border into Mexico and accompany some other adults.
I mean, this is something we all know already, Senator. Meanwhile, the New York Post is reporting that the administration has, quote, released 72% of migrants who illegally crossed into San Diego since President Biden's so-called crackdown. So why are we talking about an executive order when it actually appears to be all smoke and mirrors?
Well, Maria, that's just it. There's more holes in this policy than Swiss cheese. It's going to make no difference. Again, the Obama administration said if we have over 1,000 people crossing our border a day, then we're overwhelmed. That's why all these terrorists get in, is because our Border Patrol are overwhelmed. To talk about these children for a second, you and I have both been the border multiple times. This is the humanitarian crisis that we keep alluding to, that these children are being exploited. Right now, Joe Biden is complicit in helping organized crime. He's making this possible. They're sitting there bidding off these last 400 to 500 passes each day to not hit the magic number of 2,500. So Joe Biden is actually helping the cartel. He's empowering them. He's helping them get rich.
Meanwhile, I want to get your take on what's happening in terms of the two-tier system of justice. According to the media, the guilty verdict of Hunter Biden proves that there's not two systems of justice. The DOJ is denying any collusion between Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg and the White House on Trump's prosecution in the New York trial. The department also denied any communication between Bragg and prosecutor Matthew Colangelo when Colangelo worked at the White House prior to joining the Bragg team. Assistant Attorney General Carlos Uriarte penned a letter to House Judiciary Committee Chairman Jim Jordan, writing the department does not usually make extensive efforts to rebut conspiratorial speculation. The department has taken extraordinary steps to confirm what was already clear. There is no basis to these false claims. Bragg and prosecutor Matthew Colangelo agreed to testify before the House Select Subcommittee on the Weaponization of Government on July 12th, Senator. And when they do, they'll have to answer this speculation, which John Ratcliffe discussed with me just a week and a half ago on Sunday Morning Futures. Watch this.
What happened in this case is that after Donald Trump announced he was going to run for president, 4 different sets of prosecutors went to Joe Biden's White House to meet with Joe Biden's lawyers and his Department of Justice. From Georgia, from New York, Letitia James, Jack Smith, shortly before he brought his indictments, and of course, Alvin Bragg, who not only met with Joe Biden's lawyers in the White House, he took one of Joe Biden's lawyers from the Department of Justice to have him bring this case. So, you know, all of these people in all of these jurisdictions, Maria, are proxies of the Biden White House.
Senator, isn't there a way to prove this? I mean, the DOJ is saying absolutely no. There's no coordination. Nobody met with White House counsel. John Ratcliffe says the opposite. If John Ratcliffe is saying the opposite, there must be a way to prove this. Do Republicans have evidence that, in fact, these prosecutors met with White House counsel?
Well, Maria, I think what I would focus on is Michael Colangelo. This is a real person, Michael Colangelo. He worked for years for the New York State Attorney General's office. He sued the Trump Foundation, the Trump Organization, Trump administration multiple times as well. This guy has a PhD in Trump derangement syndrome. And then he's hired by our own Department of Justice to do what? He's found the man, now let's find the crime. So let's get an entire log of every day that this guy has spent working for Merrick Garland. I think that that's where we're going to find the evidence. So yes, we have the power to subpoena all of his records. Let's see what he was doing on a daily basis. I think that we'll find that the focus of his day, the focus of his life for the last 10, 15 years is to get Donald Trump. And I bet he's behind this concept of turning 34 misdemeanors whose statutes of limitation had ran out, somehow trying to turn that into a felony. So let's see his records. This is why Americans don't have faith in our government right here.
Yeah.
This is the top 3 or 4 issue why Americans don't have faith in our government, in our elections, in our judicial system.
Well, if there were meetings with all these prosecutors and the White House counsel, there has to be evidence of it, and I want to see that. Todd Pyro, we're going to find out whether or not what John Ratcliffe told us is true. These are meetings that, if they took place, there should be evidence of it.
Exactly. And I think it's so vital, of course, to go through the records. But there's also a logic here, Senator, and it is this. If you are number 3 in the pitching rotation for the New York Yankees, you do not then ask to go be a single-A pitcher in the minor leagues. And that's exactly what Colangelo did here. And so I think one of the lines of questionings, and I'm curious if you agree with me on this, needs to be, why did you leave such an esteemed position to go take a much lesser position, if not for your desire to destroy Donald J. Trump?
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. I think it's exactly what Jim Jordan is going to be asking him over there. I have faith in Chairman Jordan that he'll nail this. That's one of the many questions. But let's look at the records. That's what I want to see. Is I want to see a daily log of what he was working on.
Exactly. Senator, will you be meeting with President Trump when he's in D.C.? I know that you're talking about the GOP agenda with the president next week.
You know, absolutely. So we'll be meeting with the president here. I guess that's tomorrow. Looking forward to that and wanting him to know that we're standing behind him. I know that he's had some challenges lately, that we are still standing behind him, that we are going to do everything we can to slow down this weaponized justice system and listen to his agenda. We want to kind of get an idea what we can do with budget reconciliation, what we're going to do when we hit the ground come November the 5th.
Senator, it's good to see you this morning. We'll be watching all of that. Roger Marshall is in D.C. Thank you, sir.